And we're live. And it's just me, folks, today. We just got back from Italy. So we've had quite a long flights and things like that. So Jane's very tired, but I had to come on tonight on our regular show tonight because there's so much going on, particularly with Ukraine and Putin and all the rest of it. So, you know, it's going to be just me, and I'll be saying hello to you all as you come on, such as Agility Bits here. Thanks, you're still there. Pat, nice to see you on. We're all praying for UK and hoping Putin will withdraw. Yes, I think positive thoughts are important at this time, aren't they? Really important to send out positive thoughts and energy for the poor people of Ukraine. You know, you've got to admire them too as well. Actually, they're standing up to all sorts of troubles there. Hi Mary from Donegal, and Catherine, evening from Nottingham. I've got some friends up there in Nottingham today. Good evening, Craig and Jane. But Jane, as I said, won't be here this evening, but you're welcome to put comments to Jane. She reads all your comments that we put on, and particularly with this show tonight, put a lot of comments now and afterwards, after we've gone live, because there's going to be some I want to hear your ideas as well as what I have to say tonight, obviously. Joanne is saying, hello, Jane and Craig, hope you're well. You obviously posted just before we went live, Joanne, but just me tonight. Hello from Manchester, morganschoolofenglish.com. Well, good to see you. Wendy, well, Craig, your predictions so far look like they are right. Some of them, I will say at the top of the show, one of them was wrong, though. And that was, I thought they were going to go in. I thought he would go in November, around the time of the American elections and things like that. But it's kind of this. I'll tell you what I've said already in a moment. But it's kind of come right, apart from the fact of the November. The timing was slightly out. Charmaine Hoover. Hi from Johannesburg, South Africa. Cheers. Yes, we met some South African people while we were on holiday, actually, there in Italy. Patricia Schultz is saying, hello, Craig, very concerned. Greetings from Germany. Yeah, and particularly, you're right on the doorstep of Ukraine, aren't you, there in Germany? Love and peace to the world, says Yvonne. Indeed. And like I say, we need to send some positive thoughts here, guys, don't we? Ozark, hello from the Ozark Mountains in the United States. I see we've got a few. I can see the comments coming in on the side of my screen actually tonight, and I see there's a lot of you there from the States. Shalom from the Bahamas. Hello, Bay. Hi there. Lottie Martin, lots of love to Jane. Yes, Jane's fine. She's just very tired tonight. So we've had a long haul, actually, a lot of walking and some really exciting things going on over there. But we can't tell you about that quite yet. Polly Sullivan, hello from Sussex, peace and love. Hello, Craig. Thank you for coming on this evening. Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. We've all been talking about this Ukraine business, like most of you have, I expect. And obviously, I've put up a load of videos this week all about dreams and things. All dream ones going up, you know. And I even had a few complaints. Some guys saying, "What are you putting up videos about dreams for when there's all that going on in Ukraine?" Well, we weren't there, mate. But you got some videos from us. Deborah Lee, g'day from Melbourne, Australia. G'day, mate. Hello from Southampton, says Ben. Of course, me and Jane are based near Southampton, so we get a lot of people from Southampton. Thomas is saying, will the UK get involved in the Ukrainian war? Well, let's have a cough first. Now we're back in the UK. Oh, hi, Nick. Hello, Craig. Good to see you. Good to see you too, mate. Right, let's talk a little bit now about, first of all, what I've been saying up to now and what Jane has been saying. Oh, thanks for the $20. Thank you, Rudy. That's very kind of you to do that. That you can always make these super donations on YouTube, and it does help the channel a lot if we get things like that. And also recommend this to all your mates too, because we're near the 100,000 mark very soon with the number of subscribers, which takes us on to a higher level with YouTube, which is real handy. So what have we said? First, I got it wrong with November. Right. But most of the other stuff that I've said on my videos about Russia and the ones I did at the beginning of the year are more or less right. First and foremost, that Putin will be going in. There was no doubt about that. I also pointed out a lot about China, that I feel that this is going to sort of, China's watching in the in the Isles. And as you know, I've made a lot of predictions about China and what's happened in China up to now. I predicted the Hong Kong riots, for example. But I do feel that China's going to become a very, very important factor in what's going on with all this. And is already, we're getting sort of rumbles of that already in the background. So Putin's gone in. Now, the man is first and foremost. This is, you know, this is not Russia invading Ukraine. This is Putin invading Ukraine. You know, when we think about that man, he's got a huge, huge ego. You know, he's a little man. You know, he's short in stature. And it wouldn't surprise me he's short in stature in other areas as well, because he's the sort of man that seems to be always trying to prove a point that of his masculinity, isn't he? You think about it, all these shots with animals in nature and wild bears or whatever it is he does, and shooting animals and going and doing this ridiculous level of bodybuilding. When I find, not all people, but when I make some people like that, you have to question why. You know, why do they have to sort of make this big display? You know, why are they unhappy with their with themselves and have to sort of project this energy of virility to the world? You know, because Putin was a funny sort of guy, really. I mean, he got into power, didn't he, through when Yeltsin sort of well, Yeltsin kind of opened the door for him. You know, you remember Yeltsin? I mean, Gorbachev was the one that brought all the perestroika and all the rest of it, and opened the door to the West and created hope for Russia to become a democracy. Yeltsin was pretty much a drunk who followed him. You know, Gorbachev was pushed into the background. We didn't meet him personally. We were inches away from Gorbachev. He came to England, and we actually almost bumped into him in a hotel where we were going to. Lovely, fantastic man he was, I think. Yeltsin was a complete drunk, and Putin kind of took advantage of that, and was put in the position of kind of minor power, but soon turned it to his advantage. And he's become a man really that I think is grabbed power, hasn't he? He's a man that has grabbed personal power. You look at him, and is he a man who really does want to do good in the world? I'm sure he loves Russia, but I'm sure he loves his ego more than anything else in the world. You know, he's an egotistical small man syndrome with him, you know. And I feel that with him, he is driven by egotism. So it's not Russia invading Ukraine, it's Putin invading Ukraine. And he's had, I'm not a politician, I'm a psychic, but I think he's had 3 terms in office, or maybe 4 terms in office, and they're pretty long terms in office. And he overturned the sort of democratic election process, and there's sort of moves in Russia again to sort of want to bring that democratic process back into process again. And I think Putin wants to find reasons for him to keep his grab on power. So what's Rudy saying here? Thanks, Rudy. I'm willing to bet that the Ukraine will fight off the Russians. Even their president has taken up arms against them. That's the ferocity you talked about in a previous prediction. Putin has underestimated them. Yes, and that is what I think is, Rudy, that's a nice point, actually, an important point. And was the thing, because you remember in my videos I said that Russia will go in, but they have severely underestimated the Ukrainian people. I saw today, did you see it on the news? I was just recently, there was a little program about them making these Molotov cocktails. They got ordinary people, the whole population, getting out, making these Molotov cocktails, which you put polystyrene in so it sticks. You know, it sounds terrible. I mean, burn a person to death. But you've got to look at the resilience of those people and think, no, these guys are going to fight to the man, aren't they? They're going to fight to the death. If they're prepared to take their children out preparing like that. And this is not some show of political strength, is it? No. I mean, their leader, they don't even particularly like their leader much, but no, they've come together as a nation and are prepared to fight to the death. And I think those people are going to really humiliate Putin in the end. And let's face it, this is Putin going to war with Ukraine, like I said. And are the people of Russia going to support him in quite this level? If they see humiliation on him, it's like, politics is like the playground. If you see a weakness in a kid at school, everybody goes for him and tears them to bits, don't they? They're like a pack of wolves. And it's the same in politics. It can be very easy for people to fall from power very, very quickly. So my thoughts are that the Ukrainian people, and they're already showing this, and this is what I spoke most about in my earlier video, they're going to really show the Russians a thing or two. Now, if Russia does take over, and I think Russia's going to pull back, actually, I don't think they'll take the whole country and try to hold it. I remember the days in Czechoslovakia when they all moved, shows how old I am, when they moved all the tanks into Czechoslovakia and took over, and they really just crushed the popular uprising. But they when they went into Czechoslovakia, this is a different situation. They held Czechoslovakia for a long time, but this time the population are definitely not only against them, but they're ferociously against them. They underestimated. And the guy that's in charge, I forget the name of the Ukrainian president, Nick, but he's a guy that is he's not a puppet of Russia by any means, but he's grabbed, come the time, come the man. And he has stepped in. It would be very easy for him to leave the country and stay. I'm going to hold I'm going to be like de Gaulle. I'm going to hold I'll have my presidency outside of the country and we'll tell the troops what to do. No, he's gone in there and prepared to fight it out on the ground. So we see a man there is going to become a centerpiece. And the number one target, of course, for the Russians, because we've got to get rid of him. We've got to put a puppet in place. But can we get him? I think he'll wiggle. I think he'll keep underground enough. Just like, you remember how when we went into Iraq, we might do that next too. We went into Iraq and we couldn't catch Saddam Hussein. You remember they had all the cards of this is the ace and the Joker and all the rest of it. Couldn't get him. It took ages to find him in his own country. So, with the network of people that he's got, I think even if the Russians, storm through Kiev, we'll still be able to run an underground war there. And it would be an absolute quagmire for Russia if they tried to hold that country, because the population will fight them back. I think Putin ultimately, strategically, wants to develop a corridor, like a corridor on the sort of far east of Ukraine, because there's two types of Ukrainians. There's the full-on Ukrainian-speaking Ukrainians, and there's the Russian-speaking Ukrainians. And Putin, I feel, this is politics. I'm talking kind of politics rather than predictions at this point, really, in a way. But, Putin thinks that all those Russians there, Russian-speaking Ukrainians, are fed up with being part of another country and they want to be back with Mother Russia. What some of them do, because they're a minority, I've spoken to people like that myself, but I think they're beginning to think, I prefer a democracy than a mock democracy like we've got in Russia. And even the Russian-speaking Ukrainians, I feel, are going to turn against Putin, and it is banned. Do you think that at some point during this war that an attack on Russia is possible by any organized military forces as a means to an end? I don't think, and I said this at the beginning, I said that France and Germany would be the ones to react, but they react slowly, but they wouldn't bring in military power. America is an absolute joke with this. I mean, and done absolutely nothing. They're talking now, we're going to send them arms. Oh, yeah, you've been invaded and we're going to send you arms. Bit bloody late, isn't it? And they're just arming people on the streets with Molotov cocktails, and you've got tanks storming down the street. And it's the same thing with, I think France did the same thing, haven't they? They offered them arms. But that's all very well. You've got to get the arms in there and you've got to train would you or me be able to use any form of gun, machine gun, or a tank firing weapon of some sort? You've got to train people. It's not just the weapons. You've got to train the people to use them. So the So it's a mockery. Biden is a joke over this. I think Trump put his foot in it with the things he said as well, frankly. Although I'm sure what he was thinking, how clever it was, we should have the same sort of idea as a buffer zone. You know, in the past, they used to create buffer zones, didn't they? Used to, in the military strategy in the past, was to create buffer zone. Poland became a buffer zone in the old European wars, I remember from history. And it's like they're going to, I think Putin wants to create a buffer zone there, you know. So I think he'll go in and he'll move back and he'll hold part, because I think the actual objective is to get part of Ukraine. And it scares everybody. And it scares everybody because he's anti-NATO. And he's realized the power of NATO. Because NATO, you know, Sweden, Finland, Belarus, who's going to be part of it next? On my doorstep, says Putin. So I don't actually think, Joanne, there'll be a world war, not over this. But I think it is the start of something a little bit scary nonetheless. I wouldn't say it's going to be like a third world war type of thing, because the people that's looking at this more than anybody are the Chinese. Xi Jinping, or whatever his name is looking at it thinking, now, can I get Taiwan? He's had his eye on Taiwan for a long, long time. And I've said in my earlier predictions last year, when I was talking about this year, I said that there'll be a conflict in Ukraine, and this will be followed by a conflict in Taiwan. Now, destiny is not set. We may set our path collectively onto a new and better destiny, and that's the hope, you know. But I feel that the movement of destiny at the moment is we don't act, and we don't act as a world, not just, you know, even if the Ukrainians win, you know, against incredible odds. I mean, it's a pretty incredible thing. But if they could win with a sort of guerrilla type of bogging down, that's not good enough. Because the question is, if you can get away with it once, and he got away with it in Crimea, Putin did, you can get away with it again. We're proving the point here. And if we let him get away with it, China is going to go into that Taiwan, and then we're going to really be in a big fix. I mean, I was looking at some of the predictions of Nostradamus, for example. Now, I'm not a Nostradamus expert, but I remember I just had a look at some of my old books on Nostradamus, the ones that had been published in the 1970s, right? And it's more interesting because if you look it up in books rather than on the internet, you don't get all the fake quotes coming up. And also you get a view of it from an earlier perspective. So people not being influenced, they're being influenced by the events of the time. But I noticed that at time and time again, the idea came up that we would become friends with Russia. And then this was pre-Gorbachev, those predictions were being made. But then Russia would turn against us again. And the predictions in the Nostradamus text more or less say, because they talk about the Reds, he talks about the Reds, Nostradamus does. But the Reds could even be China, couldn't they? You know, because they're communist as well. But but if we interpret, one of the interpretations at that time was that Russia would turn against us again, and that there would be a second problem later on. This is Nostradamus speaking, not me now, but that there would be a second problem later on with the Middle East, when Russia ties in with the Middle East again and causes big war with America. So that's one of the interpretations of it. I was a bit disappointed, weren't you? I don't know. I'd like to know your comments, guys, on all these things. But I was a bit disappointed on the reaction of India, because they've been buying arms from Russia. So they kind of remain neutral. We don't want to upset the apple cart here. You know, I thought a country with such high moral values would have condemned the attack of a country. China, again, is deliberately sitting on the fence. And all we're going to do is give them sanctions and turn off the oil, right? And where's that oil's going to keep flowing? And where's that oil going to flow? That oil is going to flow to China. And in return, China's probably going to buy nuclear technology and all the rest of it, that and space technology that Russia has. So these are the things I see the way it's going to go like that. You know, it's going to be a complicated situation. It's absolutely, Ellie, it's a complicated situation. And a lot of these countries are afraid to act because they're not just worried about triggering a world war. They're feathering their nest. You know, they don't want to upset the apple cart because we've done deals with Russia. We're buying Russia oil. You know, we went to Italy, and Domenico's friend he was talking. I think it was Domenico's friend. He was saying, well, he bought a load of fridges from Russia, you know, and now they weren't going to be delivered, and he was messed up because we can't get the fridges, you know. So it's affecting people. We don't trade with Russia on the level we do with China, but you imagine if this same situation now goes east, and Taiwan's invaded, and suddenly we can't get hold of all our electrical components and things like that. You know, it's a very dangerous and tricky situation that we're in. And I feel that this is the way it's going. I feel it doesn't mean to say we can't stop it, you know, but my gut feeling at the moment is the path of destiny is more war this year. You know, interesting how it all triggered on the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022. There's all those odd things, and the transit of Pluto happening right on bang on time with this as well. You know, so the astrology is a bit dodgy at this time as well. Putin has warned Sweden and Finland that they are not to join NATO. So you're not to join NATO, you know. I mean, Trump put it well with NATO, so that everybody's got to sort of pay their way, because NATO has become a kind of a toothless organization with people just sort of giving the minimum and thinking, oh, well, these things are all over now, you know. But it's not until it's complacency that often brings about wars, isn't it? You think it was all the roaring 20s and the roaring and exciting times of the 1930s before 1945 and the Second World War and the rest of it, you know. Who would have thought that all these good times, such terrible times came? And we're certainly in a period of terrible complacency at the moment. And we certainly got complacent about NATO, you know, and why shouldn't they join NATO? Why shouldn't other countries, Belarus, join? Why shouldn't anybody that is democratic, the true democracies, join NATO? You know, it was the only way we could secure the world by the democracies of the world getting together and acting. So will Russia succeed in the end? No, because I think Ukraine will not be permanently claimed. It sounds like it in some ways, but no, I don't think they will. I think they'll be pushed back. In fact, I think Putin's going to really get egg on his face over this, and I think he's going to lose political power. A lot of this is about his personal political power, and he knows that if he's got two choices. He's either going to have to pull back, or he's going to make it even worse. The usual inclination of these type of people is to make it even worse, because they're only interested in they're narcissistic people, aren't they? They're only interested in their own personal power, you know. But I think he will pull back. And like I say, I think he'll pull back and leave and take a slither of Ukraine, as it were, take part of the east. I noticed, I had a look at the geography of Ukraine to see if I could pick anything up with it. And I noticed that Ukraine is divided pretty much by like a series of lakes, reservoirs sort of thing down the middle with rivers running between it. And I wondered if that could become some military sort of line. Would that be the line that he would draw to move back to there as a way of kind of trying to put the lid on it? Because, you know, like I said, with Crimea, we really gave it away. We're all going to give sanctions. We're all going to come down on Russia, and then we all step back, and he keeps Crimea. And he thinks the same thing will happen with Ukraine, but I don't think it will. I like your guys' ideas too. You know, if you've got thoughts, you don't have to just ask me questions. Well, if you've got any opinions, any thoughts, put them in the comments now in the live and afterwards. And, you know, let's debate this. I mean, there's a lot of psychic people join this channel. A lot of politically minded people join this channel. Let's have the pundits and let's have the psychics. Let's all put our comments and see if we come up with some common denominators about how we feel it's going to go. The timing is odd or maybe well planned. We're coming out of worldwide pandemic, and now this happens with Russia. Yeah, it's the hidden stuff again, isn't it? These hidden agendas. I mean, that makes me think, actually, love your enemies, as well. Why did they go into Chernobyl so quite quickly as well? You know, I mean, strategically, okay, it's not a well-defended area, but it's not the sort of place you want to send your troops, is it, into a radioactive area? You're going to make your troops sick. It's not going to help discipline going into those sort of areas. Makes me wonder whether some of this was, I think this is a secondary agenda, but is there something hidden there in Chernobyl that the Russians knew about, you know, and we had to get it out or dig it up or get it out quick? You know, is there perhaps buried nuclear weapons there ready, could be dangerous, or, you know, could be used, or that could have been taken on by the Ukrainians? You know, it made me wonder that is there something that went on in the background there as well? Because these wars nowadays, they're fought in the shadows so much, aren't they? Also with all the things that are going on with the cyber attacks on the banks. You know, I said that would all happen, but it's pretty obvious it would happen anyway. But there was a load of cyber attacks, and I think there's going to be a lot more of that. I get the feeling also, I was thinking that a lot of the hackers in the world, you know, the democratic hackers, are going to turn their attention to try to help Ukraine as well. You know, that there might be a bit more of a cyber a reaction against Russia. I mean, we've shut down their banking system up to a point. They really should. I don't know what your opinions are on this, guys, but I think they really should stop them using the SWIFT codes. That means they can't do any real banking whatsoever. They can't do international transfers. And it means everybody's got to come on board with that. And we're still not completely 100%. But, you know, I read somewhere, someone said all this sanctions business, it's like going to a gunfight with a pea shooter, you know, and I think that's the situation we've been in. I think one of the positive things that might come out of it as well, you know, I think nationalism's not a good thing if it's used in wars and things like that. And all the kids at school are told how terrible it is that there was a British Empire or the Americans fought in the wars or whatever. Every good thing any country's done to fight for democracy is all sort of sneered at nowadays. But I think it might make all of us think a little bit more about the importance of not nationalism, but each country as a nation, as a people. You know, the Ukrainians are a people, you know, and they come together. And I imagine there's a sense of comradeship that there's never been in the country. You know, I mean, when I went to Israel and worked on the kibbutzes, there was a sense of a people that had come together and building a nation. And when a country is under threat, there's always this nationhood. I think we need more of that, actually, not less. You know, all the Guardian readers out there and the rest of it that want to sort of turn the world into a sort of a liberal utopia. I think we still need to love our countries, each of us love our countries and who we are, and not without racism and without nationalism, but to be proud of our histories and where we come from. And because I really feel we must look at history. We must look at history because history repeats itself. You don't need to be a psychic to see history repeating itself. Look at what happens. That's how Nostradamus predicted. He looked at the history, he looked at the astrology for that history, and he says, when will it repeat itself? When do these stars in the similar position? You know, we must all have more history. Learn it. I think someone might try to take Putin out. It will be planned. Now, funny you should say that, Pat. I know your name's Pat. Because Jane said the same thing. I think she mentioned that it could maybe that I get a feeling Putin might get taken out. I get a feeling that my thoughts were on that Putin's not as well a man as he makes out. You know, often people that overdo it with the physical exercise that he's been involved in, you know, and he's got to be the muscle man all the time. They often will get other weaknesses in their bodies when they push their bodies to the extremes. You know, one of my excuses of not doing heavy exercise, but they often get heart problems. And Putin, you think about it, Putin was absolutely horrified at the idea of anybody getting near him that might have COVID. So he fears weakness. That's part of his psychology. But has he also got some condition, underlying medical condition that could have been threatened, put him at a higher threat level than other people? You know, I mean, he used to make people go down a big sort of corridor or something, didn't he? And they had to go through the full germ sort of suits and everything to see Putin at the time of the when the pandemic broke, which made me suspicious. Has this man got some underlying illness, you know? And could it be that Putin has some illness? And this is kind of like, maybe he knows something we don't about his health, and maybe this is his attempt to make a mark on history, you know, that his name goes down as the man that built Russia again, that brought back the states, you know, brought back Czechoslovakia, brought back Poland, brought back Hungary, you know, all the countries that were part of the Russian bloc. You know, is that part of his legacy? Putin and also his co-workers have threatened Europe with nukes. How real is this threat? Well, it's always a real threat. But those threats have been there all the time. You know, this is why we've, in a way, not had nuclear war, because the mutual destruction, as it were. And people don't talk about that quite so much today, because we've kind of got used to it. But you know, when I was a kid and we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, there was the news and everything was always about the idea that, you know, we have to have nuclear bombs, because if they don't have we don't have them, they'll have them, and they know we can destroy them and they can destroy us, and therefore we don't need to take a madman to let them off. So we could not ever use nuclear weapons while there's a balance of power. And that's why it's very important always, isn't it, to keep a balance of power, because without a balance of power, you think, all right, the bloke's weak, now we're going to go in and rob them. You know, they come in and steal. It's happened all through history again, hasn't it? You know, as soon as a nation lets down its guard, you'll go in and you won't just destroy them, but you'll plow the soil with salt, as it were, as the Romans did to the Carthaginians, isn't it? So you know, it's always going to be there's always going to be this threat, and that's why, you know, in times of peace, prepare for war. And although, you know, someone like myself and like you guys, you know, we're all people that are looking to a spiritual world. Practically, we cannot allow ourselves to be weakened, you know, and that's why we should strengthen NATO. Otherwise, people just storm in, just like, you know, India, spiritual country in the past, stormed in and invaded by many peoples over its history. Reading all the comments of people pointing fingers at this and that, pray and send love and light for both Ukraine and Russia and all the leaders of the world to resolve this and bring peace. Yeah, Laura, that's right. I mean, I'm talking here about all the things that people fear, isn't it? All the fears that we have about the future of the world. As I've said so many times, all these things are a prelude to better times, ultimately. I think there's going to be a great waking up of people. I think people are going to awaken to higher spirituality, and it's happening already. I mean, you know, people that are watching this channel, for example, I mean, I'm sure you are more likely to be more spiritually interested and even more spiritually awake than the common man, as it were. You know, you are thinking about the purpose, the meaning, why we're here. How can I become a better person? You know, and I think if we can also, people like, let's just say people like us who believe that thoughts are things, that are what we visualize, can create energies in the world that bring about things, both in our personal life. You know, in our personal life, if we visualize something that we want, you know, it often comes. You know, it may come in a different form, it may come in a different way, but what we pray for comes to us ultimately. It always does. And if we can have a good view of this, if we can have a good vision of this, you know, I mean, there's the karma that's working out in the world. So obviously, when I make predictions, if I just sat here and make lovely predictions of everything's going to be rosy, it probably wouldn't happen, because the karma's there. But if we keep a good thought and we have a good visualization and we think good thoughts about this, I think a good outcome will come. And I really do think a good outcome will ultimately come from this, because I think that we'll see some of these tyrannies begin to weaken. Does any specific configuration of planets can cause this kind of situation, like starting a war? Well, yes. I mean, obviously Mars in its position. I haven't looked at the astrology for all this, but we've got Pluto, which is not. Yeah, Pluto return. I was on the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022. We were going to talk about that a while back. So Domenico's hooked that one up. Thanks, Domenico. You know, all the numerology of it, all the changing of the position of Pluto into a Pluto. It's not classed as a planet now, but it's obviously was classed as a planet. It doesn't mean the effects of it aren't going to be the same. And it kind of has. It's a slow moving planet. The planets that go is the slowest of them all, because it's right on the outer rings of the solar system. So it takes, I can't remember how long it takes to go round, make one revolution, but it takes forever. So we take it as a planet that talks about the big changes in history, you know, the big changes like from eras, you know, medieval times or modern times or the times of the dinosaurs. And it's making a change. And every time it makes a major change like this, lots of things happen. There's always a changing point, as it were. So it will be a time, I think, of changes. Okay, 248 years, thanks. That's one I couldn't remember. So every 248 years we get these changes. And yeah, we'll see major changes. What they're going to be, we don't know yet. But what changes are afoot. But I think they're good changes ultimately, because not only does all the planets go round the sun, but the solar system goes round the center of our galaxy. So we're also the eras are changing as the solar system moves in its cycles. And this creates the bigger cycles, what the India they call the yugas, you know, these great vast periods of time. As the whole solar system sort of orbits the center of the galaxy. And the yugas, they say, are changing. The yugas are moving from the dark ages into the brighter ages, into the more optimistic ages. Like all the hippies were saying about the age of Aquarius and all those type of things. They are coming. You know, there are going to be better times ahead. And the whole purpose of human life here on Earth is to awaken. You know, we mustn't forget the bigger picture. You know, the small picture is all the troubles we have with the world, all the troubles we have out there. But the bigger picture is awakening, you know, in individual lives and as collectively as a species. Yeah, you also, Christina, think that's similar. You know, that's interesting. I don't know if you're a psychic, Christina, or whether you're just, you know, empathic and what's gut feeling about it. But I think Putin's health's not what it is made out to be. You know, why does he make such a big fuss about, you know, appearing to look so healthy all the time? And I think in some ways, I think people that overdo it with health and overdo it with this extreme exercise do hidden harm to their body. Putin is very physically ill. Well, we don't know that. There's nothing been in the press to say that about him, but I think there is something behind that. Yeah, Britain needs to start promoting pop music to hypnotize the world like it did back in the 60s and 80s. And actually, also America did it too with the movie industry after the Second World War, didn't it? Because the movie industry brought tremendous marketing to the American dream idea, and everybody wanted to buy American and buy into America. America was the big thing, and it has a tremendous power. The movie industry did then. And of course, in the 60s and 70s, it was, you know, cool Britannia, man, you know. I mean, everybody wanted to buy into Britain, and they're still there. There's still the energy of the power. Everybody wants to come and live in London, you know. I think culture could be a powerful force. And the Ukrainian people, certainly many of the Ukrainians I've met, are very creative people. I'm told they make good tattoos for people too. Fight of egos and common people are suffering. Yeah. If you think about it, I mean, all of the it's always been egos, and it's always been the egos of a few individuals that have created problems. I mean, we got huge egos again with the China and Russia. And I was thinking also about how in the past, it was all China was always the second. It was considered as the proletariat to the great leaders of Russia in the past. And Stalin really mistreated Mao. He made Chairman Mao, when they had a meeting, he made Chairman Mao wait a long time before Stalin was prepared to talk to him. A real humiliation. Particularly to the Chinese who have a big thing about must not be humiliated, and now it's the other way round. Putin's probably going to go cap in hand to China in the hope that they might buy his oil, or they might sort of help him out economically. Because if we really do put a big sort of clamp down on them, sanctions are usually proved pretty weak when it comes to trying to make political changes. It didn't work with Iran, did it? But I certainly think it's going to be an interesting thing. How will Russia and China work? That's where my focus goes, and I think that's what we're going to see. Because I predict. So I'm looking at where's this going to go. I think this is going to push us more towards some of these scenarios I talked about for the future of an alliance between Russia and China, a dangerous alliance. Okay, do you think that Putin could be again interested in countries such as Czechoslovakia, Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and could attack these countries in some way? Sorry about the cough. I've had no cough while I've been away since we get back to this blessed cold weather and central heating systems. You see, I would be very afraid if I was in places like Belarus, for example, is pretty much almost Russian already. But if we went to Tallinn and places like that, and those sort of areas, small little countries that could easily be sort of swamped by Russia again. And that's why I think he would do. It depends how much we let him get away with. I mean, I want peace, but we don't get peace by just saying peace, man. You have to stand up and defend your democracies. You have to defend your values. And everybody nowadays seems to think everything's going to be handed to you. Everybody has an attitude in the West, particularly. Our weakness is that we think we deserve this. We deserve this. We're owed this. We should have things without working for it. We should have all these things. We've all been spoilt. And because of that, we've also become very, very weak in so many ways. Our values are very weak. And when we get on our neighbor, we get the Putins of this world, they could stomp all over us weak democracies unless we sort of get our act together a bit more. So I think it's a real threat. I don't think he will go into those other countries. Because I think like I said at the beginning, I think he will ultimately get egg on his face. And it's not from much help from everybody in the democracies of Europe and America, is it? It's because the Ukrainian people have had the courage to stand up for their country. And I think we should give them tremendous admiration for what they're doing. And really, we should give them a lot more help, not just sanctions. We should really be going in. I mean, air support would be kind of handy if you've got tanks coming into your country. For me, it seems like Putin does not care about anything. I agree with you. He's an egotist, isn't he? That's why I'm afraid he will press the red button. He's not thinking. He's acting like a wounded wild animal who's about to die. Yeah. I think he is. But he's also a man, what you're saying there is almost somebody that's irrational. But Putin is a man that plans. He's a clever bloke, Putin. He doesn't do anything without thinking a great deal about it. He kind of, I get the feeling with him, he's a man that thinks for a long time. I would have thought he'd have had things like this on his mind, perhaps all through his life. Maybe we could get Ukraine back, or maybe we could get Czechoslovakia back, and how good it would make me look if I did those things, how good will it make me look if I can storm into Georgia, or if I can storm into Turkey, or whatever, he's probably got all sorts of thoughts like that, because with him, it's all about his ego, isn't it? It's all about his ego. Did you see the Russians in St. Petersburg protesting in the streets against their own government, shouting, "Ukraine is not our enemy"? A thing to remember, not all people agree with their leaders. Yeah, very true indeed. And even though not all people agree with the leaders tend to get their way, though. That's the problem. Bless all people in the world and beyond. Yeah, well, Gandhi said it, didn't he? He said, how did he say it? He said, there are no nations, there's only the world. I think I might have quite not paraphrased it quite right, but we do have to think much more that we are all people of the world. But the thing is, that idea has been hijacked by commerce, by trying to make us into a global spending consumer society. Globalism has become an ugly thing, when really it should be much more of a thing where we are seeing that we are all the people of the world. But usually you need a challenge to bring people together. People become very selfish when they've got everything. They become very selfish when they're fed and they've got all the material things they need. But when they go without, and when things are struggling, and when you're really in trouble, people tend to help each other, and they're happier. And you need a challenge. And perhaps that's why the world will always have challenges in the future. We may go through all this and wars may be out the world, but who knows what new challenges might face the world in the far future. Certainly environment's going to be one of those. We'll take all this, what we're watching today, probably pale into insignificance. And what if we have other things, meteorites and things like that of major scale, those sort of things, and it's the human life has been an endless fight for survival, hasn't it? And that's what makes us human, and that's what brings out ultimately the better side of ourselves. Will Putin attack another European nation like Finland or Sweden? I know they're very, very worried there. I think these are threats at the moment, because I feel he's threatening, but I think he might run his troops up against other borders. Unexpected, perhaps Czechoslovakia or Hungary or Poland or something like that. I mean, he wants the attention. It's like it's him. We're talking about Putin, not the people of Russia. And I think the people of Russia, from Russians I've spoken to, I don't know if this applies to everybody, but it's often you get a spirit of the age within each country. I think the people of Russia have become a little bit complacent. I think they've become a bit complacent. They've had a bit more material things than they've ever been used to in their hard history. And many of the middle classes have become complacent, and the rich certainly become complacent. But now maybe this might make them wake up. It might make him wait. I don't think it's going to become. He's not going to get the nationalistic fervor in Russia, I think, that Putin's expecting, and certainly you won't get the Russian-speaking people of Ukraine rising up against their masters. No, that's a hollow thing. I think prayers it doesn't go nuclear. It won't go nuclear. No way. It's not going to go nuclear. Mark my words, it won't go nuclear. And if it did, you wouldn't know if I got it wrong or not, because we'd all be dead. but no, it won't go nuclear. I really feel that we won't get any nuclear wars on the big scale. Because again, it's because of some of that goes back to when I was first learning as a medium, and some of the trance stuff that I saw from other mediums who said that there would not be a nuclear war. And this was at the time, but they predicted other things that were correct. So I don't think we will get a nuclear wars, but there'll always be the threat of it. And the destiny of the future is not set in stone, because we could all take it in any direction. But I think it's a bit like, as you think, so you become, and so does the world, doesn't it, as well? And I think it's very important always to take you back to this idea that it's important that we always become better people. If we can become spiritually awake, You know, not, and by better people, I don't mean being morally goody goodies. I mean about being kind of just decent. You know, just be happy. Actually, be happy, because often it's these energies of cheerfulness, of love, which happiness is an expression of, that make the world a better place. And remember, it's not all about the material things, is it? It's about us becoming the absolute of our potential in many ways, to become fully awake, to become a fully integrated person, you know, to become whole, to become, you know, to have lived this life and stepped out. And when we step out of this life, to feel we've told a good story. Our life has been a good story. And that's what we must all do. Not just keep worrying about what's on the news. Oh, that's going to threaten all my security. So what? You know, so what? Ultimately, it's all about where we are, you know, and it's a different sort of selfishness to what Putin's into. This is the sort of selfishness of, I've got to become my true potential, who I truly am. You know, I am a story, and we all are a story. We're just a story that's being told, all of us. It's just like a film running. It's an illusion. It's a maya, you know, and ultimately, if we can just understand that, and then all these things we don't really need to worry so much about, you know. Okay, there's things of concern, but ultimately, if we follow the spiritual path, the world will fall into place. Good things will happen. And I think we're drawing into this universe. We're drawing something from the universe that's going to make a big evolutionary step in human consciousness, and that's going to make the difference over all these things. Okay, Christina, Putin has encountered a lot more resistance than he anticipated. Yeah, what did I say right at the first those early videos? I said he's going to really get unexpected resistance, and particularly from the Ukrainians, but also from his own people, isn't he, Christina? Do you think this will result in him ramping things up, using even more brutal force? Well, his inclination is going to be that way, isn't it? I'm just thinking about this, see if I can pick anything more up. I'm just getting a few pictures in my head as I'm talking here. I think he will for a short while, you know, but I think he's going to be stopped. I just heard something said to me then. He said it will ramp up, but they'll stop him. They'll stop him in his tracks. And I don't know who they mean. Who's them? They. I think his own people will stop him, actually. I think he'll get stopped. It might be his own health, but I think it could also be his own people that could turn against him. And I think politically, it's good. I keep getting these words in my head coming to me all the time. It's going to backfire. It's going to backfire on him. So whatever brutal force he uses, you know, he's not the only person that's in charge of Russia. You know, Russia is not one person, even though he has tremendous power. There are others behind the scene, and you know, he could be removed from power. What will happen in April and May? Many people say bad times around that time. I don't specifically know actually those times. When I do my predictions, and it's the same for everybody that makes predictions, you know, the infuriating thing is we can often get something really bang on right, you know, that's not in the news. Nothing could give you any clue about it, you know, like this coronavirus thing, for example, when I said about that. But the timing is wrong, you know, and I think that has something to do with the fact that it's like things are meant to be born at a certain time, as it were. You know, its time has come, but sometimes we push it away. We make it. We have the power through our free will to push a thing further into the future, or bring it closer to us, or even negate it completely, because it's all a combination of will and karma, I suppose. So there we go. So we're coming to the end now, actually. So the last question's coming up, folks. Thanks again to all you patrons. I'm not filming today from the studio, just from my office here at home. But again, if you want to help and support this channel, it's always appreciated, because if you become a patron, and you'll find all the information about that comes up on the screen a bit, but also in the description on the YouTube video, and you'll see it in the Facebook one as well there. If you look down on the description, there's a link to what we call patrons, and a patron supports this channel, give a small amount per month, and helps us to really push it forward and do new things. And remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a center ultimately. This has been partly part of what we've been doing going to Italy as well. We've been looking at other things there, but we're also trying to do some real serious stuff to build a world-based center where you can come and visit us and we can broadcast from. So if you become a patron, it helps us. And also if you become one of the sort of other tiers, we've got different tiers for these pages. If you become one of the other tiers, you can come and join me and have a chat with me on Zoom, and you can see other bits of content that I put up there as well, and also have a chat with me in the comments, because I try to answer some comments on the YouTubes and things, but obviously there's so many it's overwhelming. But on the patron stuff, you can join me. And also I do occasional readings on there. Haven't done some for a couple of months, to be honest, because I've been a bit tired, but I will be doing some more of the readings on there on Zoom for people. And Domenico's been working on the background actually on my new website at psychics.co.uk, which we hope to go live very shortly, and you'll be able to book Zoom readings with me as well, which is going to be a new thing that I'm going to give a shot to, because I've always done it on the phone. And Jane, of course, you go and have a look at her new YouTube site as well as her Instagram that's just come up on the screen there. She's been doing her predictions, so have a search for Jane's channel, just Jane Hamilton Parker, Psychic Medium. If you type that in to YouTube, you'll find her, and you'll find one of hers, and then go and have a look at all the others. And so Jane's been making some predictions as well, independently of me, as well. So it's you get two views. I don't even know what she has to say on some of those videos sometimes, and she doesn't always know what to say or I've said either. So it's interesting because we don't watch each other's videos, because we have enough time listening to each other as it is. But so I don't know what she said, but she don't know what I say sometimes. So you'll get a better understanding of what's going to happen than me or Jay would if you watch us both. And when will all the sanctions begin to bite Russia so that the people will cause an uprising? No, to be honest, I don't think we're going to get an uprising in Russia. I think it will be more like a political bit of a backstab on him. It will be the top end that would have a go at Putin and stop him in the end, I think. And it may be after this. It won't be soon. I think this is going to be something that's going to be it'll be pulled down later, because I think we're going to have a bit of a protracted period with this. Sanctions. The only problem with sanctions is it only usually hits those that are the poorest and weakest in society. It was exactly the same when we tried to put sanctions onto Iran. The people at the top didn't affect. It only affects the poor people. Same when we tried to do it with North Korea. We put sanctions on and the population starved, but the army still can eat. So I don't think they work well. I think we have to do more, and I do hope we do more, and maybe even arm them a bit more to make sure that those determined Ukrainians can push the Russians out, possibly even on their own accord, make it into a quagmire, make it worse than Afghanistan. There will be a day in the future when Russia and the other world powers banish nuclear weapons into the pages of history books. No, we can't banish them into the pages of history books because it's been invented. We can't uninvent it. We just have to have wisdom, don't we? We have to have wisdom and knowledge. And I do think in the years ahead, we will look back to these times of the 20th and 21st centuries as barbaric times, really, when people still fought, when we were still like thugs, because I think the world will awaken. And I think in the far future, and perhaps not that far future, I've said this before, that people of good character will rule the world, not people who just climbed to power, but those who even voted to power. But it will be people who we can look to as being exemplary people with exemplary values, and are dedicated, and probably would live poorly in order to fulfill their roles. Almost the sadhu-like characters I see one day as ruling, or Gandhi-like characters, I suppose, although Gandhi was a bit of a clever politician as well, even higher than his level, people that, that's what we've got to visualize. And that's what I feel will ultimately come, is the people at the top will become better people. Thank you, Craig and Dom, for coming this evening. Yes, thank you. Thank you for Domenico, of course, in the background there. He's taken his time off and work, and he's tired out as well. He's been driving hundreds of miles over Italy with us. And thank you for Dom and in the background. And thanks for a great chat, Craig. Thank you, Jamie Baby Avocado, one of our patrons there. Pauline, have a wonderful weekend. Crack and Jane. Yes, what's left of it. Sathya Sai Baba, spread light and love for the world through devotees, and all the other great teachers too, because Sathya Sai Baba, I think, has brought some exemplary people into the world of good character and good human values. And there are many other good teachers out there too that are also helping to bring this, spread the light through each of us. And that's the hopeful message at the end of the day. Thank you very much, says Erica. And don't forget, guys, put your comments, even when we've gone offline, put your comments and come back and have a chat. Because if you come back and have a look at this video later, you'll see all sorts of comments coming on there, and it can get very interesting. I love reading. I read every single one. And there's some interesting stuff and comments coming up. Don't forget to like the live video tonight. Yes, true. Give it a like. Click that thumbs up button. Thank you, Jealousy Bits. That little thing in the bottom there. Click it, and it helps to go up the rankings a little bit. We want to get over 100,000 followers, and that will put us on another level. Thank you once again for an interesting chat. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Jenny, for coming. Breeder saying, I feel as you do, Craig, that Putin will be stopped. There will be individual and group backlash, and maybe this is the way forward for the world. Yeah, we have become reliant on our governments. Yeah, that's true, actually. We're too easy to be told what to do, isn't it? We all obey and we all go along with it. Thank you, Craig. Love for Norway. Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Craig. Joanne says, thank you. Thank you for joining me again. Thank you, Craig. Namaste. Namaste to you, Teresa. Thank you, Craigie, says Susan. Thank you, Susie. And thank you for a great discussion, says the Jealousy Bits. Yeah, thank you, guys. And thanks for coming so regularly, so many of you too. And again, another patron there. So thank you for all of you, particularly the patrons, who we always try to give preference, actually, on many of the questions when you ask. Lottie saying, thank you, Dom. And thank you, Domenico, from me too. Thank you both. Welcome back. Yes. Back next week too. Domenico, thank you. And we're back every Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And we hope to go a lot more, actually, Jane and I, wanting to utilize the studio there. Thank you, Craig. And anybody living in Winchester area, we need some volunteers as well. Anybody who wants to come in and help, got a bit of knowledge of camera work, or just wants to give a hand, get in touch with me through the website at psychics.co.uk, because Domenico's doing his work, but he's got his own work to do in the week. So we're hoping to get a few volunteers to help us in the studio itself. So listen on, if you live close enough to Winchester and can spare some time in the day, Jane and I would appreciate it. Anybody that's got a little bit of photographic ability. Thank you, Craig. Hi, say hi to Jane. Hi, Jane. Okay, she's in the other room somewhere. 100,000 followers for you. Yes, please. And tell all your friends. Like it on Facebook and as well, and share it and put it in the groups. Thank you so much for this talk. All the best, dear Jane. Yes, Jane will be with you next week, I'm sure. Always love listening to you and Jane. Thank you, Dom, too. And we've also had Willow in the background, our granddaughters who've been learning how to use the ropes as well with some of this. Love from Finland. Ah, yes, nice to see you there in Finland. You've got a lot to fight against with those Russians too, haven't you? We keep them off. Thank you, Craig, and all the best. Thank you. I can't pronounce your name. Thanks, Nicolo Avocado. Thanks. Congratulations on Italy. Thank you. And Bowden, thank you, Craig. You always bring comfort and hope. Yeah, I do, I suppose. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. And thanks for joining us again. See you next week. Jane will be with me again then. And don't forget, go out and become one of those patrons. Have another look at the patrons. And all these books in the background. Have a look on Amazon if you like my work, particularly Be Happy, my new one. See you soon then. Bye for now.
Would you like to know more about the paranormal world? Craig Hamilton Parker's books are now available on Amazon. Explore the future. Discover what happens after death. Unlock the secrets of your dreams. Learn to develop your own psychic skills.